Hi, Robert. Thanks so much for joining us for ICTC's National Cyber Day 2022. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, because it's a sprint, to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and what is the NATO Association of Canada, what are they doing to protect Canadians online? Ready? Go.
All right. Thanks, Deborah. Hello, everybody. My name's Robert Baines. I am the president and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada, which is an organization that helps to educate Canadians about something called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In a very brief amount of time, it's a group of countries that have all banded together, Canada's one of them, to say that we're going to protect one another and to make sure that if anybody tries to hurt us or to try to do bad against us, we are going to make sure that we all protect one another, just as you would with your friends. And being able to clarify that for most Canadians is my job, to try to help explain that and the importance of Canada's role as a team player on the global stage. So that's what I do, and that's what the NATO Association is all about.
Awesome. And like we said, cyber safety is a team sport, right? It's all about helping each other out. So how would young people benefit from understanding information versus misinformation versus disinformation?
Well, as with everybody now, we are living our lives online. And what happens is that we have so much information coming at us, it is extremely important for us to be able to distinguish what is good information and what is bad information. Good information is generally from a trustworthy source. But how do you tell what is a trustworthy source? That is one of the most important skills that young people today can develop. It's almost like a muscle to start realizing who has the expertise to actually give me information about this. That might mean it's from a source like a website that's from the Canadian government or from one of our municipalities or the province. It might mean it's from a university, or it might mean it's from a reputable, very general news source, which has a lot of different capacity to research and to be able to display information. It's such a difficult thing to pinpoint, though, when it's coming from your friends. And that is the most difficult aspect of disinformation. You may not know who is giving you disinformation, and it's very likely to be somebody that you know, and they may not even have an idea that it is incorrect information. So it really gets down to being able to identify who is a worthy source, and that means that you have to do a bit of digging, unfortunately. But the great thing is that once you do have some good sources, then you can always rely on them to give you some fairly decent information, which in this day and age is very valuable.
So what then can a young person do if they think they've spotted disinformation? What can they do about it?
Well, first and foremost, if they think they have spotted disinformation, they should tell the person or the platform that they have seen it on. So if a friend shares an article or just a funny meme that seems to say something that's completely incorrect, you have to tell the person who shared it with you, who's probably a good friend of yours, or at least a connection, that you think this might be untrue or that this might be misleading. And you have to take the responsibility to connect to the person that you know and let them know and let them do a bit of digging as well in the same way that you have. And that's a difficult conversation to have when you're calling out a friend. So you have to try to do it in the idea of open inquiry, of asking questions and just saying, are you sure about this? And in that way, hopefully you won't insult any of your friends or get anybody mad, because that is the difficult problem we have when we are trying to discover disinformation, because everybody feels a little embarrassed for sharing that information when you point it out. So you have to do it in a collective way that tries to make sure that both you and your friend are on the same team and you're both trying to get to decent information.
So why do you think there's so much disinformation out there? Like, why does it exist and how is it being used?
Well, in a good way of explaining it, thinking about a team, the NATO Association of Canada supports NATO and Canada. We are not always on the same team as many other countries in the world. And that means that many other countries and many other actors in the world, many other players are trying to disconnect, to trick, to lie to our citizens so that we are not coordinated. That they are trying to make sure that we are not playing as a team. And as you can appreciate, there are many different ways of doing that. But the fundamental one, the most important way that somebody, an enemy of ours, on the opposing teams of the world, if you will, the best way that they can make us unsure about ourselves is by trying to divide us, trying to get us angry about our other fellow team members. So that is a lot of what disinformation tries to do, tries to divide Canadian citizens so that we're arguing with one another instead of working together for the betterment of our own society, which is surely one of the greatest things that Canada and Canadians can work towards.
So what's being done to fight the online disinformation coming into Canada?
Canada is setting up a series of different programs under what's called the Digital Citizenship Program. It's trying to do two things. First, to study disinformation. It is an old problem, but there are many new ways that disinformation is being used by our enemies overseas. And so that studying of it will allow us to be able to make informed decisions so that we can gather a certain amount of expertise and perhaps prevent disinformation from impacting more people's lives. The other aspect of what the Canadian government is trying to do is to create resilience among our citizens. So just like this, making sure that more people are educated and can spot disinformation. And it's just like being immune to a disease. Once you see disinformation happening all over the internet, and you can spot it in your own news feeds or on social media, you then become part of the resilience of Canada. So that's what Canada is trying to do, is to create citizens who are informed and are able to stop disinformation from spreading further. And if you think about it, it's just like a virus. The more people who can stop that spread, it just helps exponentially. So many more people, it helps from catching disinformation, if you will.
I like that analogy. So is this something that kids really need to worry about? Like, kids are hearing things like cyber war, cyber espionage. Is this something that kids need to even think about?
Well, it is a part of our lives now. I'd love to tell you that the world is a wonderful, comfy place with beanbag chairs and everybody smiling and shaking hands all the time. But the truth is, there are some people who are not trying to do good in the world, and we have to be aware of that. Cyber war is very remote, but it is a possibility. When you hear the word war, it sounds very scary. But what we're usually talking about is the ability of one of our enemies of taking out some of our infrastructure. So our energy power plants, or our banking system, or our health system. These are things that are very important to Canada. And that is what we talk about when we talk about cyber war. If you think about it, you're not going to want to have to go to the hospital and find out that none of the machines are working. So that's the kind of real impact that cyber war can have on us as Canadian citizens. So you have to be concerned about it. And I think you and your parents should always talk about being resilient as a family and having some emergency supplies for situations where there isn't power or you have to maintain your own food for a little bit. But that's just common sense. So it doesn't have to be scary. It's just being self-reliant and resilient, which is something that historically Canadians have always been good at. But the other thing you can do is to keep learning and to keep your eyes open on the internet, to make sure that you know that not everything there is true, and to be able to help you and your community to discern, to identify what is true and what seems to be less than true, shall we say.
Excellent. So here's kind of our wrap-up question that we're giving everybody who's joined us for CyberSprints, because we want to get a lot of perspectives on this. What do you think is the number one thing that young people need to know about cyber safety?
That it starts with you. That is the number one thing that everybody needs to know with cyber safety. Cyber safety is a very big topic, which also includes just making sure you don't infect your own computer by going on unsafe websites or putting in a USB key or transferring files, opening up emails that you're not familiar with. It just means being careful, more importantly. And it's your responsibility. It's every citizen's responsibility to be careful online. That would be the number one aspect that I think every young person has to know and to take away from this discussion.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Robert. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.